I do, folks. How you doing? Just a quick one. Just a question, really. Are you afraid of doing wrong, or are you afraid of being punished by your masters? Because if you're afraid of doing wrong, you would just do no wrong. But what about all of the things that you have the right to do that the corporations say you are wrong? Now, that would mean you're just being, or you are just afraid of being punished by your masters. That would be accepting and consenting to servitude, slavery. Now, you could say that slavery was abolished in England, at least, or the corporate UK, should we say, in 1833, with the abolitions of Slavery Act. But that's their law. That's the law that binds the consenting persons. So if they're going to stand under the Slavery Act 1833, or the Abolition of Slavery Act 1833, should I say, that would mean, again, you're consenting to be a slave. And I put it to you that one of the ways you're consenting, and probably the biggest way you're consenting, is the fear of being punished by your masters. So under duress, yes, you can claim, but you don't, because you just go along with it because you're afraid. But under duress, you can, like I say, you can claim that under duress you're only going along with it through fear, which would be a valid response to it, and also a lawful excuse. However, you don't. You just go along with it because you're afraid of punishment from your masters. It is slavery, but again, I put it to you that it's consenting slavery, because although, yes, you're doing it under duress, you're not telling them that, you're just doing it anyway because you're scared, you're intimidated. You go into magistrates' courts because you're intimidated and you're too afraid to tell them this is treason. You tell them by notice. I've done quite a few now where I've accused the prosecutor, if they go ahead with it, they'll be committing treason and I won't be a party to treason. I've accused them absolutely outright, stating that that all administration courts are unlawful. The court has no royal assent. It's unlawful. There's not one thing that they're doing in there that is lawful. It's all corporate. They have no permissions whatsoever, no consents. And if they continue without your permission or without your presence, it would be treason, and you require everybody's name that was a party to it for charges to be filed. Bang, no court. You just get a letter back from the prosecution. Eventually you get a letter back from the prosecution after a few weeks stating that there's no they don't have any records of that name, so it's over. No, they won't admit that they're committing treason. Don't expect them to. All these people who are shouting at them and fucking saying, you're doing this, I want an answer to this. No, it's not going to work that way. As far as my notices as the evidence sovereign man's concerned, conditional acceptance has gone. It's gone. I don't need to conditionally accept anymore. I'm the evidence private sovereign living man. I've got the police addressing me as that. I've got DVLA addressing me as that. I've got multiple government filing reference numbers, and they all go on every document. So here's who's agreed. Who are you? I'm not that consenting person. I certainly won't accept slavery at all. And if they came and took me away, that in itself would be the sheer definition of slavery. I've given no consents whatsoever. I've evidenced that I'm not a person to what all of those legal statutes apply to, and the acting. So So what would they be doing if they actually took me? Be abduction, kidnapped, taking me without consent, torts and trespass, under natural law, under God's law. That's where I stand. I will hold them to their acts and statutes. Absolutely, they stand under them, so I will use them as I quote them to them, and I also state that you stand under, because I don't. But as they do stand under it, you can use it. You're using it against them. You're not using it for you. You're showing them where they're breaking the laws that they presume. There is no authority other than that which you give. None whatsoever. None. Stop giving it. Stop giving it. I should be standing as a sheer example. I don't say anything that I haven't done. I'm on my rights to travel. I have been for quite a while. I'm untouched, unbothered. Every video I do is on the road because I don't have fucking time when I'm back home. But it is a case of you've got to learn some shit, obviously. But as I say all the time, it's easy. It's fucking easy. You're looking at it from the wrong perspective. You're looking at it from the other end, looking down a long tunnel. And you're saying, fucking hell, that's a long old trek. But it's one foot in front of the other. That isn't difficult. It's just commitment. So it is all there to learn. Everything's there to learn. There's many folks out there on many videos telling you all sorts of stuff. And don't believe me, and don't believe any one of them fuckers either. Just listen and take bits. Don't take everything that anybody does. Take bits of information. Learn how to put it together yourself. That's doing your due diligence. That's handling your own affairs. That is required as somebody who wants to stand as sovereign. You're already sovereign. By nature you're sovereign. But the way you're portraying yourselves and the way you're handling yourselves isn't sovereign. So therefore you can't claim to be sovereign. It's easy to say, I'm sovereign, man, I'm this, I've got unalienable rights, I've got this, I've got that, and every which way you turn, you're consenting to their acts and statutes. It doesn't work that way. If you're going to say you're something, you have to be it. You're evidencing you're something. How do you evidence that you're something and then show, which is also evidencing that you're not? It muddies the water, which cancels everything at law. So you need to learn how to handle yourself as a sovereign man or woman. You need to stop accepting all this bullshit that goes on, these claims that come through your doors, and you're all panicking and worrying about bailiffs. And I'll tell you something, when I was fucking just starting out in what I do, the very start of what I do, I was dealing with bailiffs successfully without any fucking real knowledge at all. Just knowing that I'm a man, not a person. Not really knowing in depth anything about that, but just knowing that fact. That was all I needed to know to run with. Just knowing that you're not that person. Why do you keep accepting to be that person? If you're not that person and mail comes through the door for that person, why are you opening it? Do you want to open it? I mean, I open mine. I open the ones that come to my trust, absolutely. I'm the beneficiary to the trust, and I've evidenced that that's what I'm going to do. I've evidenced it at every level of the judiciary and the government. Along with just about everything I do in my life, I've evidenced. Because I've evidenced ahead of time, I've handled my own affairs. I've removed every bit of power that they presume to have over me. Because I've already evidenced to them what I'm doing. Everything. There's not a lot of anything in my life that I'm doing that I haven't already evidenced that I've got the right to do. Not a lot of anything at all. I can't think of anything, otherwise I would have evidenced that as well. So if any claim ever came and says you can't do that, well, there you go. You had 14 days to respond telling me why I couldn't do this. Bang, here's the notice to prove it. Your acquiescence, thank you very much. Acceptance in full, at law. Done. Done. People send DSAR notices off. If you don't get a full and complete non-misleading response from a DSAR notice, the matter's over with. You're done. You're absolutely done. If they want to come any further, you don't need to. This is the problem. Like, they come back later on and just proceed as normal. You go, it didn't work. Yes, it did. You need to respond to this next one. How are you going to respond? You're going to respond going blah 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 blah. I'm not a nay da da da. You know how I'd respond? This has been dealt with. It's absolutely been dealt with by way of DSAR that has not been responded to correctly within the 28 days. I am waiting in honour for your response. Full non-misleading disclosure. You're waiting for them. It's their turn. When they respond in full with what you require and answering all the questions, if you're using a DSAR under Data Subject Access Request Section 170 or Data Protection Act 170, 1998, 2018, that's a slash in between, and Article 15 of the GDPR. That's what you want to be putting on a DSAR. Even as a sovereign, I've sent DSARs out, stayed, I'm sovereign, but these are the laws you're bound by, so respond in full. If they haven't responded and they've tried to go on, that's the only response you need to give. I have responded in full to your claim and I am waiting in honour for your honourable response, which is just right and proper. Waiting for your answers, aren't you? And if you've wrote your answers correctly, or wrote your questions correctly, should I say, you've already wrote your answers if you've wrote your questions correctly, because they can't answer them. They can't answer the questions because it's fraud. It's fraud. What fiduciary capacity are you operating in? You can, as a sovereign, what authority do you have, or where does your authority derive from to stand over the living flesh and blood man? You need an answer to the question. You need to know that they have the authority over you. It's a valid question. Ask it. You've already identified yourself as the living man or woman in your notice. Ask that question. Are you immune to the law? It's a valid question. You need to know, because if they're breaking the law and continuing to try and bring a claim on you, you need to know if they're immune to the law, then maybe you need to pay this because they're immune and they can just do anything with impunity. But if they're not immune to the law, I must remind you, you're breaking the law right now. You can't bring a claim on me by breaking the law. You cannot. There is actually a maxim on that, but I've not got it straight in my head. But I think if I haven't put it in Wonky World, I will put a file up in there of maxims. There's loads and loads and loads and loads of maxims in there, and even I highlight some of the ones I find useful, so you'll see that when I get back. I'll stick that in there. And you see the ones I find useful. Just when you're writing a notice, write your notice, then go back. You can even put a little star where you want a maxim or something. When you've finished your notice, go to a maxim file, like I have, and go through it. Just look for the maxims that fit. Cha-ching ching. Slap them in. Maxims are fantastic. They are chiefest, as the law states. They are most respected and they are honoured. So use maxims of law, maxims of equity, maxims of any kind. Stick the maxims in, hit them with a maxim. It's like a baseball bat to the back of the head. But the reality is, and question everything. If you're evidenced as sovereign, then you can just refuse, just deny them any authority whatsoever and send them to your trustees. If you wish to bring any claim forward against this living flesh and blood man attached to, or against that legal fiction, dead entity, trust, then and pertain it to the living man, then you're going to have to deal with the trustees. They're the only ones in position of liability to that name and you appoint your trustees as you notice them. It's simple as that. Simple as that. I've been doing it for a while now, and not many are listening. I've been trying to teach it forever, and not many have heard. What can I say? I offer it to tell anybody. I know people have got a bee in a bonnet about my charging for what I do actually physically when I do it for people, evidencing the sovereignty. But that is all about my workload and putting it on to pay for something that we're doing, which is getting the hell out and buying some land. Not for my personal pocket. I'm not having fun on it. I'm not having fun at all. I'm busting my balls trying to wake every fucker up just about every minute of my waking day, while trying to recover from the fucking health issues caused by trying to wake fucking people up and help people out the shit. So I've given. All I ask in return is folks fucking learn something for themselves. That's all folks need to do. Learn some stuff. One step at a time. Just one step at a time. Learn information. Don't try and learn ways. Don't look at everybody's video, because I'm telling you now, as somebody who's actually standing here as an evident sovereign living man, and I am standing here as an evident sovereign living man, at the end of the day, private sovereign man, anybody who doesn't bother learning is stupid. I'm sorry. In this day and age, there's got to be something wrong with you. And anybody who's following folks who haven't achieved, who haven't learned, and I'm not looking for followers. I don't care if somebody wants to fucking look at what I say or do. I don't beg for people to look at it. I just note that not many fuckers do, when I'm really the only one standing there who's actually achieved. I do know of somebody else who's achieved, but it's very quiet. But I'm the only man I see that handles his own affairs to the extent I do. What can I say? Go look at other groups. Take information, but if you want to follow their ways when they haven't achieved, what does that say about you? You know what I'd say. But I see a lot of it going on. I see a lot of folks on my group just posting shit from other groups, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. Something was posted on there from another group today, and I'm looking at it, and the Trump, they just don't get it. They don't get what's going on. What's going on isn't about politics. That's how they're achieving what's going on. They just don't get it. It's not slavery. It's consented to. Stop consenting to your servitude. If you want to look on it as slavery, yet you're going to consent and claim that name or do all that you do, you can't. You can't call it slavery. You're consenting. So folks, learn some shit or don't. I see a couple of folks ask me questions, and I'm happy to answer anything I'm asked. If folks started talking about it in Wonky World, we'll go into law on there. At the end of the day, that's what we started out as, originally a law and truth and joking page. But it was only through the acquiescence and lack of interest from the group that stopped most of the law stuff going on there. Stopped the discussions about law. Same with the YouTube. Stop the discussions. One or two folks looking at it. Hardly anybody gives a shit. So I'm talking to just a handful of folks. You can do that without making videos and putting your ass out there. Just is what it is, folks. I don't ask folks to share my shit. I don't ask folks to like my shit. I don't give a shit. I did what I did. I learned what I learned in a desire and a drive to help others. I did. and I got no respect for it. A bit of respect from a few, and those know who they are, and I do appreciate those that did appreciate it. But the majority just wanted to get away with something, and I learned the hard way. You just can't put yourself out there, because they will take every last bit of you, every last bit. You have one conversation after another, even with the folks I'm happy to talk to. I have one conversation after another, and sometimes 2, 3 at the same time on fucking Messenger or something. And it goes on all day, all night. Each one gets in touch with me, we'll go for an hour or so. If it goes into a phone call, it could go 1, 2, 3 hours. This is all my time I put in, and that's all giving. Folks don't see that side of things. You have a chat to somebody, you go away, you think you've had a chat to them, and then you go away, put your feet up, have a beer, watch telly, have a spliff, whatever your pleasure, and you just presume I'm doing the same. Very, very rarely I get to put my feet up. Very, very rarely I get to have a break. And it's all through, as I say, the drive to help folks. But I did realise really early on, I suppose I better wait here, there's a fire engine coming. I did realise really early on that folks will just keep fucking coming if you put yourself out there. And I realised pretty late on that I wasn't actually helping folks. What I was doing is taking care of the problems, but they'd realised they'd found a way to handle their issues. Every time they got a problem, pass it to me. And that's them fixing their issues, which works great for them, but obviously on a build-up it don't work great for the ones doing it, which is why it can't sustain, and which is why I couldn't keep doing it forever. So, ambulance now, he's fucked, he ain't getting past. We can hear this screeching for a bit if people don't start moving out of the way. Excuse me. So, fire and ambulance, good luck to whoever's on the receiving end. Poor sods. So yeah, it can't be sustained that way. So I did learn what I'd been told by a few people right at the start of what I was doing. You can't do that. People must learn for themselves, and they absolutely must learn for themselves. We just had Kim stop at a green light and just block the whole job off. Wow. So that was ridiculous. So folks, you do have to learn for yourself. You have to handle your own affairs, and to be honest, if you want to add to your Sescovy Bond Trust Legal Fiction name, then you absolutely have to handle your own affairs, because that's the way you do it. You can have somebody help you evidence yourself, but you must learn what you've done. You must learn to stand on what you've done, and then you must learn to be what you've evidenced you are. So many folks are screaming, I'm sovereign man, when it suits them, and signing as the legal fiction when that suits them. And to do that, there's a whole process you've got to go through to be able to do that. First of all, you need to rescind all contracts. You need to apply or evidence what you require from them, and get yourself out of the system, as I've told many times how you do it. Lots of different headings within the paperwork I've got. But once you've done all that, you need to state to them, until such time that you have stood in honour and granted that which is required, I shall have the right to stand as beneficiary only, with no liability whatsoever to the all caps dead entity legal fiction name. But if you want to play both games and you haven't evidenced that in the first place, and of course everything's in an affidavit of truth, they have time, 28 days to rebut, but on the bottom of mine I sometimes stick 14 days as a response in there. It's an affidavit of truth. If they didn't do it within 28 days, they only had 14 days, and it don't matter anyway. But it locks them in absolute. They must have responded to you. And if they haven't responded to you, that's their acquiescence and acceptance in full. And if you've accused them of it, it's acceptance of their guilt in full. And if you've done an affidavit of truth to the government, you ain't getting a response from it. So you will always get them accepting in full by their acquiescence. You will always do, because they cannot respond to an affidavit of truth. They cannot, because as much as they are under oath not to lie and cheat, double speak and bullshit and bollocks, plenty of ways to not comply, not do as you're told, without actually breaching their own rules. They've got a lot of experience at handling you. Most folks take their acquiescence as your own failure. It didn't work. Yes, it did. You didn't know how to proceed. And that is why you should know exactly what you're doing. And unfortunately, for the past few years, well, for fucking ever, lots of information's been put out there, but lots of fucking groups have been absolutely hijacked, run, or just trust the wrong folks, and they've not managed to get anything bloody done, because nobody will ever take you to the end result. Nobody. Why is that? Why is everybody still turning you in circles? Why are so many folks who haven't achieved anything advising you, and why are you taking advice from those who haven't achieved? Human nature to like the ones that are most personable, like the ones that kiss your arse. They're the ones you want to watch, the ones that give you that warm fuzzy feeling. You know, it's like, oh bless them, I love watching them. Yeah, because that's how you get to the bottom of truth, isn't it? Love watching shit. People love watching the news, BBC. People love watching the soap operas. People love watching the Hollywood movies that are full of satanic shit. People also love watching you fall down. People love watching people fall off ladders, fall into water, injure themselves, hurt themselves. Funny old thing, human nature, innit? So hey, I'm going to leave you with that one. Are you a consenting slave? In which case you are not really a slave, are you? You're just an employee who has accepted a really shitty job. Have a good one all. I love most of you.